I want to talk about on Submission Radio. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Dan Hooker went on Submission Radio, and he alluded to the fact that he had a fight booked with a mystery opponent, and he wasn't allowed to say. And he was like, "Sorry, boys, I can't tell you." Now it's been told that it's going to be Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, coming from Bellator, former champion, is now coming over to the UFC lightweight division. I expect really good things from Michael Chandler. He's much shorter than Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's around 6'2", I think, and Michael Chandler's around 5'10". I think he's shorter than that. I think he's 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah. Well, it's a big advantage for Hooker because Hooker's massive for a lightweight.
Yeah, he definitely is, and he's definitely big for a lightweight, and I don't know how he really makes that cut. He always looks like a welterweight on fight night, but I can't wait for that fight. It really shows. I mean, Dan Hooker's no slouch, and he's certainly not a journeyman. He's not a gatekeeper. So, that being said, Michael Chandler, if he can hold his own against Dan Hooker and get the victory, it shows he is of the same caliber as the UFC.
It shows that, yes, and it also shows the proof that, we talked about this in our last podcast, UFC don't like to fuck around when it comes to fights from, people from other divisions coming into the UFC. Like, look, if you say you're the best, all right, we're going to give you one of our best, and then we'll just want to see you get annihilated. So, kind of how I see it is everybody in Bellator is kind of just hoping to prove that they're not a laughing stock. They're actually legit, and they got some legit killers coming out of Bellator. And I hope that Michael Chandler comes, and he's just because, he's just non-stop been talked about, non-stop been hyped up. He just went to Abu, and he's very, very professional as well. He went to Abu Dhabi on the Gaethje versus Khabib card, made weight, was ready to go, but, it just shows his class. And I feel like to him, the biggest thing for him to prove is just that he's no pushover. He's going to be in the UFC and he's here to stay. But it's not going to be easy.
No, and a lot of the time, whenever it's not just the UFC though. Like we had Sage Northcutt, who was kind of like the pretty poster boy of the UFC. As soon as he gets taken over to one championship, they throw him a really tough fight, and he gets smashed by him. Right. I always forget his name. What is it?
Cosmo Alexandria.
I always knew Alexandre, but I didn't know what his first name was.
And he's a world kickboxing champion.
Exactly, multiple-time kickboxing champion. Yeah. So
and he busted like all these bones in his orbital bone.
Not just his orbital bone, or his facial bones. I believe it was his zygomatic bones as well.
Yeah. I think he needed facial reconstruction.
And then when Ben Askren came over to the UFC. They gave him Robbie Lawler, they gave him Jorge Masvidal, and then they gave him Damian Maia. They gave him some brutal people to fight against, and that's the exact same thing I can see happening with Michael Chandler. I think they're going to continue to give him really hard matchups. We know that Michael Chandler is a brilliant wrestler. You can definitely trade. He loves to get stuck in those striking matches. However, Dan Hooker's got really long limbs, and that makes it a bit easier for him to keep him at a distance and making sure that he doesn't get caught in a takedown. Mm-hmm. So
I'm quite eager to see how this could go on the ground, though, because Michael Chandler, he's a phenomenal wrestler.
He is, and Dan Hooker isn't. We don't get to see as much of his ground game. Certainly none of those city kickboxing boys. A lot of them are predominantly kickboxers, very good and very versed and well versed in the stand-up game. But we don't really get to see their ground game. Doesn't mean that they have no jiu-jitsu and it's crap jiu-jitsu. I'm sure they're very good, but we just don't get to see it because the talents in their kickboxing skills outweighs them needing to go on the ground. Like someone who can't really trade as well, they stick to their wrestling, take them down. That's their advantage. Michael Chandler can do both. Mm-hmm. So definitely an interesting matchup.